that? Cows out to pasture, feeding on grass and enjoying themselves in the bright sunshine. Little do they know they'll soon be taken to the slaughterhouse to be chopped into hamburger. Oh, that's not what we're talking about? My bad. Let's talk about the Moo limiter and the Moo Tube Compressor. That's right. This video is part of a series of videos about the APB hardware and the APB plugins that come with it. Now the Moo limiter is your standard kind of limiter. It has a gain control, so you want to turn it up, you just turn it up. That's all there is to it. It has a recovery control. A faster recovery will make your overall signal louder, but it'll add a little bit of distortion. A slower recovery won't make your signal quite as loud, but you'll have less distortion. And, because this is the analog processing box we're talking about, we have a saturation control. That's right, folks. It's programmable analog. So if you want to program yourself a saturation circuit, we got that right here with a saturation control knob. Okay. Now, something else about the Moo limiter, the peak control is actually a digital trim after all the analog processing is done. This keeps the analog signal at a maximum level, and if you want to trim it down, we'll only do that after we're in the digital side of things. This way you get the maximum signal to noise ratio from your analog processing, and then we'll trim it back on the digital side. Yeah, it's so awesome, isn't it? All the controls are automatable. You can save and recall presets or restore the plugin with a session, just like any other AAX native plugin. And there you go. How about we hear some? Okay, hope you're wearing some of these, otherwise you ain't gonna hear diddly. All right, I got a vocal here.
Oh, my goddess, you got me going. Oh, my goddess.
Okay, I get it. He's got a girlfriend. Very nice. But you know, if you're gonna be talking about your girlfriend, it should sound like, like you really mean it. And so, gotta add some grit. Conveniently, the Moo Tube limiter is made just for this. Check it out once again without, and then I'll put it in and we'll play around.
Oh, my goddess, you got me going. Oh, my goddess, I want you. Oh, my goddess, you got me going. Oh, my goddess, I want you.
One more time without.
Oh, my goddess, you got me going. Oh, my goddess, I want you. Oh, my goddess, you got me going. Oh, my goddess, I want you.
Okay, that was kind of breaking up there. Maybe that was a little bit too much, or maybe it wasn't enough. I don't know. Point is, I can push it right to the edge of where I know the saturation circuit's going to kick in, and then I can play with it. I can apply way too much gain and make it sound kind of distorted that way. I can crank up the saturation amount. I get some distorted sounds that way. The Moo limiter is great for not only maximizing your signal, but also for adding some cool saturation that's completely from the analog domain. Now, who wouldn't want that? Next up, the Moo Tube Compressor. It's got controls. Let's talk about them. From left to right, you got your threshold control. That's the level at which compression is going to start. You got an output control, or your makeup gain, the amount of gain you apply after the compression algorithm has squashed the signal. Then you have an attack control, how fast the compression engages, and a recovery control, how fast the compression stops. You can monitor with the meter the input, the gain reduction, or the output signal. You can trigger the compressor from the input or from a sidechain. And then when you're listening, you can monitor the compression output or the key signal being used to trigger the compressor. Now the Moo Tube Compressor, like a lot of tube-based compressors, has notoriously slow attack and release times. And that's okay. It's made for the kind of soft touch compression. You just want to have a little bit of compression, maybe bring out a little bit more of the ambience of the room or a tone of the audio track, but you don't want to make it sound like a compressor. Okay? Okay. Let's hear it on some drums. First, the track by itself. Okay, drums. They're kind of dark and I like it, but how about a little more drums? So I'll play it back again bypassed I'm going to use the compressor to bring up a little bit of room tone. The analog programming from the Moo Tube compressor is going to give us a little more bass, kind of make it thicker in the middle. It's going to be lots of fun. Here we go. Okay, enough of that. Now, how about I take those drum tracks and I'm going to crank them a little bit and try to get some saturation or distortion happening. Now, like every other APB plugin, because the saturation circuits in the APB hardware are calibrated perfectly to make sure you don't go over 0 dB, we'll only be hearing analog saturation. There'll be no digital clipping. Okay, let's hear what we got. That's all right. The bass kind of broke up. It sounded a little bit, I don't know, retro, edgy, distorted. Okay, now I'm going to do this example one more time. I'm going to take the output and I'm going to really crank it. It's going to sound really bad, but just to give you an idea of what the analog saturation might sound like, well, that's why we're watching. Here we go. Whew. Anyway, that's probably not what you should do with your mix, but just in case you want to try something crazy, there you go. The point of this demonstration, though, is that when you're using analog outboard gear, not an APB plugin, just analog outboard gear, you're going for some kind of tone, and you're going for some kind of saturation amount, probably. And then when you get that, you still have to monitor those levels as you bring it back into your Pro Tools session. With the APB plugins, I can sit here and crank up my makeup gain of my analog compression algorithm and go, oh, more distortion, less distortion, whatever. But I'm just monitoring analog distortion. Anyway, the Moo Tube compressor is totally awesome in my completely unbiased opinion.